welcome to the show. Now, over the last couple of months, you would know that I've been looking into lots of publications, reviews, and developments in business. I know that one of our other shows does that, but I've been doing that on the show recently. I've got Abdu-Raof Hanslo here. We've got a relationship dating back some years ago, and he's into a new space and some new publication, and we're going to find out about that. Abdu-Raof, welcome to the show.
Shukran, Faizal. It's a pleasure being here once again in your company.
Thank you. Now, what's interesting is that I remember you from back in the day because somewhere along the line, when I was doing another show with another channel, I think we met there, and then I think that the relation went along all the way. And now I've got some interesting news, and that's you starting some publications. I've seen the Business Developer, and that one's going well. The newsletter I'm getting all the time. I do make the time to read that one. And it's been interesting, but there's something exciting coming on your side. But before I go into that, I want to understand Abdu-Raof Hanslo so that we understand his publications.
Okay. You know, Faizal, I've spent 14 years in the finance industry, specifically in the business development part of the investment finance Sharia industry. And what this has basically taught me is a tremendous amount, firstly, about our community and about Islamic finance as a whole. I think my education was basically directly from the community and what the needs of the community were. From financial planning and financial advice to business development and to basically seeing to distribution of various Sharia compliant funds. I found one problem in doing that for the last 14 years is that each and every one of the companies were for themselves, as would be expected of a business. I think that to me, I wasn't happy with that. I was more happy being in a space whereby I could offer empowerment and education to the community, specifically in the field of Islamic finance. And hence my departure from the asset management industry in June of 2014. This ultimately took me totally into a space which I'm not familiar with at all. And I launched a company called the Islamic Investment Finance Forum.
Let's just rewind the tape a little bit. Did you always have this feeling that there was a void within the industry, and that was that maybe we have a client and we have business and we have asset managers, but at the same time, did you always feel the void was around the education of all of this? Prior to your departure though?
Yeah. You know, you find financial advisors, and financial advisors ultimately today in South Africa, with the regulations surrounding their practices and so on, they're giving some good and solid advice as far as where best to place your money and how best to manage your money. However, at the end of the day, it's the client who sees the brand of a specific company and is au fait with that brand that creates the need for the investment in that specific fund, in a specific fund. So ultimately, when sitting back and looking at the entire scenario and looking at how advice is rendered, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the way advice is rendered. But however, the education from the client side is basically just who is the most in your face as far as media and advertising is concerned. And this I found was a problem. Because yes, as good as adverts may be, it's just an advert. There are other sides to the coin. There's another side to a coin. And that I found that working for 4 of the Sharia asset managers in South Africa, I found that each and every one of them has a different philosophy. And each of them has a different investment strategy. Which means that at specific times of when markets reach certain points, there's scope for each and every manager. There's a huge scope for investment gains and profits in these investments at certain times of the market. And I feel this is something that the public must know. Ultimately, the flavor of the day can be a specific fund due to them being in the media every single day and every single...
So you're saying that apart from people latching onto brands simply because they see the brand every day, so they naturally have an inclination to the brand. Apart from that, there needed to be other layers that are being unveiled in the background for people to understand where the investment was going. So you start off with the business developer, and I want to go there because I see this transition from the newsletter into a more tangible, bigger publication coming up. Where does the business developer come from?
Okay, the business developer we launched in November of 2014. It's an emailed newsletter. Currently goes out to 22,000 people every single week on a Monday. And this publication is basically aimed at the same thing, creating transparency and creating awareness about specific funds, and then also educating further.
I'm actually smiling because I know that I'm sort of a person that cannot switch off on a weekend.
Yeah.
So I've been trying recently.
Yeah.
So on a Monday morning, I'm very strongly reminded that it's Monday morning by getting that business developer. So it switches you over from weekend mode, and it says business, and I say, okay, right, it's Monday. So I'm used to getting that on a Monday now.
I think the main thing what it does is what we try to do with a business developer is to try to create a sustainable thing, something that comes through every single week that gives you an idea of what the previous week's markets look like and what asset managers were doing in the previous week, as well as news coming through, the latest news, and your market indicators and world news. So we give you headlines and so on. We're currently down to edition 41 at the moment, and I think it's it's been received quite well by the asset management industry, and we've had a tremendous amount of feedback on our social media platforms as well as email. So yes, it is being received very well. It's the first of its kind. It's a Sharia investment finance newsletter, and I think we've become the pioneers in that field. However, in saying that, Faizal, this year is not about business. This is mainly about education.
Correct. So is this where, is it because of that particular publication newsletter that you decided to go into a more, I would say, if I can maybe call it an upgraded level of publication, because now you're sort of coming out of that space, going into a very tangible space?
You see, the one thing we realized is that our community is a wealthy community, but that wealth is not specifically amongst the younger generations or Generation Y, as you might know it, where people are familiar with electronic media and are familiar with email, for example. So what we realized that very, very early. So as much as the person in the street needs guidance and needs to be educated on finance, so do our wealthy people as well in our community. If you take a doctor, for example, a doctor is a specialist in his field of medicine. But as far as finance, I've seen it in the investment finance industry. They are totally at the back end of investment finance because they don't know what's happening. So these are educated people, but also some of them are our older generation. And therefore, we decided to launch this printed publication that would ultimately give the opportunity to the older generation, who's used to reading out of books, the opportunity to be educated on Islamic finance in South Africa.
So we look at the content of the publication itself, and I know that you're speaking about education and we're talking about finance, and but there are various formats and genres that a publication can take, specifically from a format point of view. What do we expect to see specifically? Are we talking about advice columns? Are we talking about input from the public, maybe saying that this is what I'm finding happening to my current deals with my current asset manager? So a bit of controversy. What do we actually see from a content point of view?
Firstly, Faizal, we have to realize that funds are sold in accordance with how well it's known. So if there's a need for a fund, that fund's going to be sold the most. And how do you create the need? Is with advertising. So what we've basically put together in the South African Islamic Finance Times is an idea different to advertising. So we've said to all the asset managers, we've said, write articles for us and give us a perspective on your business, quarter to quarter. So if there's any changes in your portfolio, justify your decisions as far as choosing specific shares in your portfolios and your specific ideas and ideology behind investing in specific shares on the market. That's number one. So we're trying to create a bit of transparency as far as the asset management industry is concerned, because for too many years has our community been left in the dark as far as where their money is. If we take a few years back in the life industry, a lot of our people were done in due to life policies being sold and promissory of funds being paid out to them ultimately, and nothing came forth.
Yes. So do you find that there's perhaps a gap? And maybe I'm just thinking aloud. For example, we find a situation where if you look at your asset managers and you look at your banks and you look at people that are within the investment fraternity, they're always seen as the suit and tie, Mercedes-Benz kind of guys sitting up there kind of thing. And then you find the average person somewhere, I don't want to use the word bottom, but basically at the bottom line of the economy. So they sit there and they run a normal life kind of thing. And there's sometimes a divide between that too. Do you feel that in any way that this paper or this publication might somehow breach that divide from a community perspective, saying that how do we uplift all of people and not only further enhance the intelligence, or rather the developments of the upper level? So can we usurp some people from the bottom up by informing them on their level? Is there a way of crossing that divide in the publication?
I think there is. You know,
I know where you're going with the publication. I understand what market you're going for, but I'm saying, is there that community component that can be incorporated?
You know, Faizal, Islamic finance in South Africa has come a long way since the 1980s. We saw the first proper Islamic audited funds being launched in the 90s. And since then, I mean, we started with one, two only were launched in the 90s, and the rest all came after 2000. So where we're sitting at the moment, we're sitting with 6 Sharia managers in South Africa. But now that sounds a little. However, there are life houses in South Africa, like your bigger brothers from the old days, that are now offering these funds on their platforms. So
you're talking about the existing huge corporate platform that now has the Sharia compliant products.
So you see, these products are the availability of these products are across the board. And if one goes to an asset manager, it might cost you X amount to start investing with an asset manager. In some cases, it's 500 Rand a month. In some cases, it's 5,000 Rand lump sum. In some cases, as little as 300 Rand a month. But that's the stipulated amounts by the asset manager. If you go through a life house, obviously you could start an investment of 100 Rand a month. And that's where the lower side of the lower part of our economy, or I wouldn't call them that. I would say the middle to lower class, where there's an opportunity for them to start saving. I think the main thing we want to put over with the magazine is the importance of saving, number one. When looking at savings has two mechanisms. There's general savings and there's retirement savings. And too many of our people today have issues as far as retirement is concerned. To be dependent on the state with a measly 1,500 Rand is ludicrous. So we wouldn't want to see this reinvented once again as far as our current community is concerned. So that's what we intend to do. We intend to invite not only the asset managers but the life houses as well, to create affordability for all the different spheres of our community. That's number one. Number two, as far as education is concerned, all asset managers in South Africa run workshops at least twice a year. Investment forums and report packs to the investors and clients. Hence, we introduced a section in the magazine called the Islamic events calendar. So everything in Islamic finance that pertains to Islamic finance will be listed in that calendar. And these will be, I would presume, would be free events because most of the asset managers don't charge for these events. But many of our community don't know about this. Most of our community don't know about these events happening. And I think to put an emphasis on it and to put that out there in the community will just give them further scope to engage the asset managers on these specific things. The other section to it as well is the asset manager obviously publishes a lot of documents every year. And in those documents are documents like fund fact sheets and quarterly reports. For the layman to sit and read these documents, it's extremely difficult. If you look at a fund fact sheet as a layman, I mean, if I take my mom, for example, and I give her a fund fact sheet to read, she's going to say, but this is just numbers. I don't know what it means. So what we're doing now is we're doing comparative graphs in the tables and graphs in the magazine, basically to compare, number one, the expense ratios of each fund. So it tells you which fund is the most expensive, which is the cheapest. It will give you performances as far as 1 month, 3 month, 6 month, the year to date, 3 year, 6 months, and 3 years. Ultimately, that would create, would make it easier, especially on the elderly generation, to just do a quick comparison. Then attached to that, attached to that as well, Faizal, at the same time, we're looking to take the top 10 holdings of every fund and place it in a table. So that top 10 holdings, basically, you would be able to see exactly where the portfolio is being shared across the market. And I think what this would create is just to show that each and every one of the managers are different.
Yes.
Because at no given time are those portfolios the same.
Of course. Are you looking to sort of break a stereotype? There's a stereotype with asset management and finance people, and it's all black and white. Yeah. It's always black and white. There's no color involved in this, because it's always about bottom line in the end of the day. But we're talking about a new generation that's coming up. They're a bit more savvy. They're a bit more concerned about the future coming up, and they're the future. So they're the older guys that are living today. How do you plan on reaching within that market and making things a bit more colorful? I mean, does finance always need to be black and white?
You know, to me, when we speak about black and white in Islamic finance, or even in any asset management or finance, the first thing that springs to mind is independence. So to me, I would always suggest anyone going to a financial advisor that's independent of the industry. That doesn't work specifically for one specific company, because obviously working for one company, you sell one product. So I think that's the black and white we're speaking about. I think we need to diversify when investing. Look, I'm not in financial advice anymore, so I don't give financial advice. But through my years of experience in the asset management industry, the one thing that we've always picked up is that we punt one fund. So that fund does well, maybe out of 10 years, 3 years of the 10 years. So for that 3 years, you punt and you punt on after that, although it might be doing badly at your client's demise. Yeah, we need to create an equilibrium across managers whereby each and every one of them has an opportunity. So in no way should the asset manager look at us and say, the South African Islamic Finance Times is a risk to us. They're going to take our business away. No, there is an opportunity for each and every one of the asset managers in the space of our community. It's just that the marketing has to be done right. And that's where the Islamic Finance Times comes in order to create that equilibrium for our community, to educate them that there is a space for each one and there are opportunities for each one. Also, what we're going to be doing in the magazine is we're putting a directory listing in the magazine. So in the directory listing, ultimately, Faizal, we're going to be listing all financial service providers and support services.
So the information is accessible to the public?
We propagate financial advice. So we want all financial advisors on board to have them listed in the fund per region, because this is obviously not a Cape Town thing. It's a national magazine. So the distribution is up to 25,000 at the moment. So we're doing distribution via electronic media and print media. We're only doing a small print copy of the magazine, and that's 5,000. And that's going to be distributed very cleverly to our more elderly type of communities.
So it's a very strategic distribution.
Strategic distribution. And as well, we will be having the electronic version of this magazine put together.
So the electronic one would reach the user via email, or is it possible to sort of go on a website and maybe open those pages?
The website is www.theislamicfinancialtimes.co.za. It will be on the website as well as email. Fortunately enough, the BD, the Business Developer newsletter that we send out weekly, is shared with the Islamic Finance Times. So we use the same database, and we'll be sending the special editions of the magazine once a quarter. So
this is once a quarter. So will it be on the quarter kind of thing, or does the financial year end of many companies play a role in when you determine that quarter?
You know, we don't want to be held responsible for putting out information that's not correct. So from our experience in the asset management industry, normally when the quarter starts, it's about a half a month to a month thereafter that the information starts filtering through. So most companies only put who submit fund fact sheets quarterly, their fund fact sheets come out about 15 days after the quarter. So the first edition should be out on the 31st of October, inshallah. We have everything in place at the moment. It's taken us approximately 12 months to put together the design of the magazine. We have the patent rights on everything, we have the copyright on everything, and we have a patent on the name as well. Not for any other reason, but we don't want this to be construed as something else. This magazine will be the first finance magazine in general in South Africa that will be a free magazine. So when at the creation stage of this magazine, I think we realized immediately that our aim here is not to line our pockets with money. Yes, our aim is to cover our cost as far as the magazine is concerned, but it's not to line our pockets. We have our businesses on the side, and our businesses are sustaining us. It's our time now to give back to the community. For 14 years I've been in the industry and I've been gaining from our community. And I think if every single person in Islamic finance should think that way, I think we can create a better society, a more sustainable economic society amongst the Muslims in South Africa.
I think it's broader than that. I think that you are saying that this is what you need to do from a finance fraternity, and I'm saying that we need to do that from a media fraternity, and if the medical fraternity and the legal fraternity does that, then we'd have a better society. So we need more people thinking like you, doing the kind of things that you're doing, and we wish you well with the magazine. We can have all your details on the screen, also on my website at faizalsaid.com. We hope to have you soon back so we can catch up with you and see how things are going.
Inshallah. I look forward to that, Faizal.
Abdu-Raof Hanslo, he's got a new publication coming out. Look out for that on my website, faizalsaid.com, and his details were on the screen. Until next time, goodbye.